works. It's crazy.
Hey, it's crazy over here. Hola, boa noite. I don't know how to say that in Dutch. So, hey y'all, how you doing? I am in Amsterdam with Miss Maureen. We are having fun. We just literally got back like maybe like 5 minutes ago from dinner. So, it's all good. But we had to come on a little early today. So, happy Thursday. It's so good to see you all. It's so good to be seen. Um, yeah, I'm not in my usual setup. As I mentioned, I'm in Amsterdam. And for those of you who do not know me, I'm Krishan Wright. I'm the founder of Blaxit Global and the host of the Blaxit Global podcast. If you are a Black person and you are looking to move abroad, hey, I'm your girl. Hey, hey, hey. So hopefully you have been listening to this season of the Blaxit Global podcast. We opened this season of the Blaxit Global podcast, season 7, by the way, with Miss Maureen Jenkins, who I am visiting here in Amsterdam in the Netherlands. My first time in the Netherlands, my first time in Amsterdam. It's been a long time coming. I wanted to visit Amsterdam I had to think about it, like at least 6 years. And so I had tried, and the universe, COVID, a lot of things got in the way, but finally it happened. And I think it was meant to be this time because I'm having a blast. We are having a blast. So we're going to talk about two ladies who are, US citizens who are living our best lives in Europe. We'll tell you a little bit about what we've been up to the past couple days and what is to come. So would love your questions. But let me start by saying hello to y'all in the chat. And we've got some channel members. We've got some passport members here. Let's see who was first in the chat. Action VJ. Hey, 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 how you doing? I hear it is warmer in Lisbon than it is in Amsterdam because no lie, it is, let's see. Today it was 57 when I was out and I was freezing, and it is 51. It is 51 here. And if I were home in Lisbon, it would have been 67. Your girl, I did not plan that part right. But it's all good. It's all good. We got another channel member in the house. Hey, Christy, how are you? How are you? You are in the house, Cheryl. How are you, Cheryl, PhD? In the house, Darrell. Hi, good to see you. Aileen is here. Karen is here. Good to see you, Siobhan. Hey, Igami. All right, Double T. Hola, hola. Look, I have been massacring the Dutch language. Because, baby, these street names, I'm like, ooh, Hassan Pepper, what? It's something. It's something. Tanya's in the house. Hey, Jess. Yes, I am on holiday, but I was like, look, this is how we got to do it because if we did so Amsterdam is actually 1 hour ahead of Lisbon. And so I normally go live. For me, it's 10:30 p.m. in Lisbon. And for those of you who are on the East Coast, it's 5:30 for you, right? But if I kept my normal time, it would have been 11:30 for Maureen and I, and we have our first flight out in the morning to go to the French Riviera. We're going to Nice in the morning. So it was like, ooh, we have to sleep because we have to be up before 4. We can't go live at 11:30. That'll be a no. That'll be a no. So yes, that is why we are on a little early, and kudos to y'all who were able to make it early. Yes, yes. So glad you could catch us. Rally for the world. Hey, hey, hey. Yes. So yeah, my first impressions. I'm looking forward to sharing all those. Maureen has lived here now 8 months, so it is amazing. And like I said, you can hear her full story on the Blaxit Global podcast. And then I had her on this channel a few months back, if you remember. So she'll be joining us a little bit. And hey, Sanzi, how are you? Yes. What? Oh my gosh. It would be when I left that the good weather came because for a month it was rainy in Lisbon, and then we were like slowly creeping towards normal weather. And of course, the week that I depart and come to cold Amsterdam, which it wasn't cold the first day I got here. It wasn't. It was colder yesterday, but today, whoo, it said the number started with a five. And I was like, oh, see, I did not bring clothes. As you can see, I did not bring clothes for weather that starts with a five. I brought beach clothes because we are going to be in Monaco. Well, I won't give it all away. I got to save some for y'all. Y'all got to know. Y'all got to know. Hey, Andrea. How's my fur friend? How are you? Yes, yes, we are having a ball. We have been up to shenanigans, shenanigans. Yoga Bliss Dance is in the house. Aw, my little fur baby's being taken care of. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I miss her. Thank you. Hey, Crystal. Kevin, yes. I know. There is the scent of weed in the air. Like you walk by a place and you're like, wait, I didn't see no weed, but they call them coffee shops. So I'm thinking I'm going to smell Arabica beans and you're going to smell Arabica weed. What? But yeah, and lots of bikes. I did not realize how many bikes are here. So that's just been great. And like I said, we've got a lot to talk about. So, you all know I love to start with announcements. So, lots to talk about. So, last week, I know some of you were able to tune in to the Job Liberation Virtual Summit for Black Women. I gave my talk on how to make money from anywhere. Loved all the feedback that I received. It was such an amazing and powerful and empowering weekend. So, if you were there, I'm sure you felt all the good vibes, got wonderful information, actionable information to help you on your journey. We have Blaxit Global. It's 5 this year, so it is 5 years of Blaxit Global as of next month. Next month is our true anniversary, but we are throwing a party, and I love me some yachts. So it's a yacht party, y'all. It's a yacht party. So there are two events. The Blaxit Global 5-year anniversary party is October 23rd. We still have plenty tickets available. The next day is the Exodus Summit Meetup, which was a dinner that is sold out. So if you did not get your ticket, we're sorry. The tickets are non-refundable but transferable. So if someone can't make it and they need to transfer a ticket, that is okay. So what I will do is at some point I may create like a wait list so that if something frees up, we can contact you. For those of you who bought your tickets in the past couple days, I've been traveling, so I did not forget to send you an email asking what your meal preferences are for the dinner. It's just I've been traveling. Show me some grace. I will send the email. Let's see, what else do I want to tell you? I've been busy. Yes, I've been busy. Yay! I'm glad. I'm glad. Oh, wow. So, Rally for the World said more bikes than people per capita. Wow. Yes, there has been like some crazy things that I've seen for the bikes. Like we went to the museum and they have like this whole like these big bike lanes, but like they're tunnels that you would think like for cars, but they're like for bikes. It was amazing. I was like, oh my gosh. But yeah, some more little wonderful things to share about my initial impressions. Um let's see. No, Bulldog coffee. No, I did not. I did not. I did not try the Bulldog. Let's see, what else do I have to tell you? Yeah, I think that was it for the big announcements. If anything pops in my head, I will share it. Let me just see if our good sister friend is ready. Are we ready? Yes, we've got a thumbs up. So, without further ado, and we're only a few feet from each other, so I'm going to bring up Maureen. Hey, girl.
Hello, Krishan. Hi, everybody. Is the back on?
Yeah, it's okay.
Oh, can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Can they hear you? Can you guys hear me? Well, they can't hear me
Uh-oh.
there. But it's okay, I'm on mute. Go ahead, say hi.
Hi, everybody. Hey, Krishan. Thanks for having me as a guest in my own house. Appreciate it.
Cool.
Too funny.
So since we're in the same space, and like I said, it may be a little bit of feedback. We're gonna do like a toggle on the mutes so we don't blow anybody's eardrums out. Yeah, I know. We just trying to figure it out on the fly because we literally came back from dinner. But so Maureen, let's start it off. You were on the channel a few months ago, and then you started off season 7 of the Blaxit podcast. So for those people that have not tuned in, why don't you give them a little recap of your journey and your life here in Amsterdam?
Sure thing. Well, again, hello everybody from lovely Amsterdam in the beautiful Jordan neighborhood here in the center of the city. I have been here, as Krishan mentioned in the notes, for 8 months. I moved to Amsterdam from the island of St. Martin, the Caribbean island of St. Martin. So, yes, a bit of a culture shock in the sense of coming from 82 degrees and sunshine every single day to the land of wind and rain and gray skies. But it's so beautiful here that, as Krishan said, Amsterdam is lucky it's got a pretty face because it makes it okay. It makes the bad weather okay. But my first expat journey started about 20 years ago, as a matter of fact. I moved to Florence, Italy, after having worked for some multinational companies, knowing that I really was excited and interested in living abroad. So I quit my job at Boeing, moved there to do travel and food freelance writing. Um, Later went back to the States because, as I have explained on the podcast and on the YouTube channel before, sometimes you kind of run out of money. You're like, okay, that's okay. That's okay. I'm going to go back home, get a job, do this again. I had my second expat experience as a house sitter outside of Paris in 2012, from 2012 to 2013, also doing freelance writing and communications consulting. Ended up moving back to the States, and during the pandemic, I was working for a global food and beverage company, had an opportunity to, again, we had no idea when we were going back to the office. I asked my boss, do you mind if I move to the Caribbean for a couple months? He's like, oh, go wherever you want to go. So I did. And I fell in love with St. Martin, which is actually a Dutch part of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. So it's related, never knowing that Amsterdam was going to be in my future. But I lived there off and on for 3.5 years. I'm a corporate speechwriter. So fortunately, I have a job that allows me to, as long as I got a Wi Fi signal and a laptop, I can make a living. I can do my work. And so had a wonderful time there until the company decided that for tax purposes, I needed to relocate. So long story there, but ended up with a choice of a few great places to live, and Amsterdam was one of them. And so that is why I decided to move here last August. Got here before the summer was over, so I had a chance to realize why Amsterdam is such a great place, and with the sunshine and cool vibes and all the other stuff. And it's been amazing. It has been wonderful, and it's, again, I never had Amsterdam on my bingo card. It was never a place that I thought I would be living, but it's been quite. It's I didn't move with a lot of expectations, and I think sometimes as a Type A Capricorn, that's hard because you always have expectations. And I'm a planner, and I'm a worrier, and all the other things, as Krishan knows. But I got here, and it's far exceeded my expectations, and I love it here, and I don't want to go back.
So for people, some people don't want like or have that's the best way to say it. So some people have preconceived ideas of what it's like to live in Europe and particularly to be a Black person living in Europe. And like you said, you came from St. Martin, you had this, experience previously living in Italy and the like. So this time around, like, how is it different?
Well, it's different in one of the main ways is that when I first went abroad, and again, this was 20 years ago, so I was 20 years younger. You have these idealized notions of what life is going to be like. And you just think, oh, I'm just going to show up. It's going to be an under the Tuscan sun experience. It's just going to be fabulous. It's going to be just like cypress trees and bowls of pasta and glasses of red wine. That's all it's going to be. But again, going as a freelancer and someone that was working independently is very different than moving with a corporate job. And, I did talk about that on the podcast as well. Um, as I've gotten older as well, I have little less tolerance for insecurity and uncertainty. And so moving to St. Martin with my corporate job and then moving here has given me the opportunity to have a safety net, more of a safety net under my feet. And that has been wonderful in the sense that, I still pretty much make the same money that I made in the States. But I feel like the quality of my life has improved significantly. I know we'll probably talk about some of those things later, but I really have a true appreciation for the opportunity. I'm grateful to my company for sponsoring my visa. That's what allows me to live here as a resident and to be able to work. Those are not easy to get, especially these days. And so, yeah, I think I just have a real true appreciation for what it's like, especially knowing what a crap show it is currently occurring in the just United States. And so that in itself, I think gives me a whole other level of gratitude for being in a place that is well run. While it's not perfect, no place is perfect, but I'm just really happy and grateful to be here in this moment in time.
Yeah, as a former marketer, I'm like, ooh, the United States needs a rebrand because United, they are not. Baby, no, that'd be a negative. So yeah, somebody asked earlier before I get to some of the questions, what were my initial impressions of Amsterdam? And so, yeah, I got here and it is very clean. I was impressed at how clean it is. The architecture, these buildings are, you see, like I took a bunch of pictures, 1700s, and, they have the stamp on them. The canal system is expansive, and just seeing these boats, and either boats that are going along the canal, they're beautiful to look at. And then there's boats that are docked along the canal. And I was like, these houseboats, or just regular boats. And y'all know I love me a good boat. I was like, look, baby, how much are these boats? Like, can I buy a boat? Can that be like my next thing? And then we got on one, but I'll go into that later. But it was just amazing. And then how walkable it is. It's a walkable city, and all of these bikes, I mean, thousands of bikes. I've like never seen so many humans on bikes as I've done here. And I didn't know that, honestly. I didn't know it's so well traversed in that way. And so people have electric bikes, there's like little kids on bikes, there's older people on bikes. The people here are very tall. And in Portugal, they are not. And so I was just like, oh, wow, my peoples. So it was very refreshing to see like the height again. I was like, oh, so I'm not the tallest person here. Okay, this is great. And so there was that. The food has been excellent. Like I said, we could have probably tried to do this live from the table, but I'm sure the other patrons in the restaurant probably wouldn't have appreciated that. But it was getting close because the food here is very good. What else did I like? Someone asked about the Dutch being blunt. Yes, they are. And compared to the Portuguese, where it's like you get that nice little warm hug, it's like I was like, wait, what? Like not rude, just very, curt, very like matter of fact, I guess is probably the better way to say that. So that was like an adjustment. But it's interesting. And then, like I said before about the language, I was trying to figure out how to get back to this beautiful flat that Maureen lives in. And, she went about her work day, and I was like, oh, I got this. And she was like, oh, you got this. Man, these streets name, I was like, Hassan Pfeffer, who, what? I got on the wrong bus, ended up somewhere else. I was like, and then the Ubers, because of the canal system, you think, and especially Google Maps will tell you, like, oh, such and such place, Hafen Pfeffer sister's daughter, sister's Strat, or Greiken something. Apologies to the Dutch people. I do like you. But y'all names are long. And it was like, oh, not that far. But the canals make it so that cars, and then there's also, streets that are blocked off for pedestrians. And so it just makes it difficult to traverse in a car where they have to kind of go around about. So sometimes you're waiting for an Uber for 10-ish minutes because and they don't seem as far, but it's because they have to do the loop de loop to get you. So that was interesting. So those are like some of the first things that I partook in. And let's see, I think, yeah, those were like the big initial ones for now. Yeah, I don't know. And Maureen, did you have any thoughts to my reactions to some of the stuff?
Well, it's funny because I think I've had a lot of the similar reactions, and just to the point about Dutch people being blunt. I mean, that's part of their charm, I suppose. That they're very straightforward. They say what's on their minds. There's not the French diplomacy and the embellishment, and Americans, we say bad things with a smile, and a wink. But yeah, here I think my friend Lisa said it very well. Often there's no, you know, there's not always a lot of roundness sometimes to the edges. And it doesn't mean that people are mean people or that they're bad people. It just means that there's not a lot of sometimes the softness that we are used to or that we want doesn't always come through. But that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. There's something to be said for, again, when you're a type A people pleaser, to get to the point where it's like, okay, well, if that's the way things are, then I guess that means I get to be blunt too. You get to do it, I get to do it too, right? And it probably takes people aback when Americans are, because again, it's like we all interact with each other coming from places of what we believe are the case. Often it's things that are potentially stereotypical or whatever, but it's the language is hard, the language is tough. And it cracks me up when you talk about Hassenpfeffer and all of that. But they're guttural G's in the language. But that again, it makes sense. It's like there's not the softness to the language. Those of us who like languages and romance languages and the flowing lyrical quality of Italian and French and Spanish and Portuguese. It just doesn't exist. It's closer to German. It's a guttural language. And being able learning how to say the letter G, if I'm saying good morning, it's Goedemorgen. Goedemorgen. That's it doesn't quite roll off the tongue like buongiorno, bonjour, bon
Who the
dia.
movie?
But that's what's nice about culture. That's what's nice about different cultures, I think. You realize that things are different. It's not going to be like it was at home. It's not going to be like it is in other countries. And like tomorrow, like Krishan said, we're getting on a plane and we're going to France. And so we get to enjoy the lyricality, if that's a word, of le français and all of that. But it's great, and it has its own charm. And I think part of, maybe I'm guessing, maybe part of the culture and the fact that people are so straightforward and they are a little less soft is because of the weather. It's because of where it's located. This is not an easy climate to deal with. Just the weather itself, with the rain and the gray and the cold in the winters. It's hard. It's for hardy people. And you have to be hardy to live here and to deal with it. And we know Amsterdam, like other major European cities, is overrun with tourists. If the weather were perfect here, can you imagine how crazy it would be? people would never go home. So there's something to be said for that.
Amsterdam is definitely a vibe. I love it here and I want to come back, which is why I'm like, sorry to the Dutch people for massacring your language. I like it. What I do also appreciate about it is that most people speak English. You know, Dutch obviously is the official language. And yeah, I had previously been to Curacao, it was like 2018. So, you know, any Dutch that I had learned from before was like on out of my brain. But most of the signs, you know, when you're trying to figure out certain things are in English or people can speak English, which is great. So that gave me a little bit of an easier transition. Like if I needed to ask for help, I wasn't trying to figure out like how to say anything. But yeah, as Maureen said, like these like sounds, like in Portugal, right? We have sounds that are not in the English language. And so it takes a while for your mouth to get accustomed to, you know, for Portugal, it's the R, you know, the R in English is like a and in Portugal, it's like a, you know, and it's really in the throat, it's throaty, where the G here is like that guttural G. And for an English speaker, a native English speaker, it takes time to get accustomed. It will happen. We were talking about it earlier. We're talking about different countries we had lived in, and I was recently finding that sometimes in my dream state, I am hearing Portuguese or speaking Portuguese in my dream state. And I'm like, oh, I have hit another level. And Maureen had a similar experience when she was living in Italy. And so, you know, I think over time and exposure, these things that are foreign naturally, right, will become more normal. But that's also part of the process. And then, like, I know there's some other questions, and we're going to get to them about like examples of the you know, bluntness. So y'all know I got big feet, right? Because I'm a big girl. And so I cannot find shoes in Portugal because they are very vertically challenged in that way. And so when I need to buy shoes, I get them when I'm stateside or somebody's coming to visit. You know, I ask them to bring me sneakers. So because I walk so much, I run them down pretty quickly. So I was like, oh, you know what? I think I need a new pair of sneakers. And I'm like, oh, okay. So Maureen's like, well, you know, they're pretty tall in Amsterdam, you know, Dutch people. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. That's true. So I go set out yesterday to find some sneakers. They only at the store I went to go up to a size 41. I'm a 42. So then I find another store, walk like 20 minutes, whatever. And I go into this store, which is an American brand store. And as I'm trying on the, you know, find two pairs of shoes that I like, I put them on. They have them in the 42. One, I think they either were both men's or one was female and one was male. Either way. So, because men's sizes go up higher, but whatever. So I'm trying on the shoes. So I try this shoe on, and I think I only had one laced up at that point. And the woman comes over to me and she's like, we're closing in 3 minutes. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then I'm like, in my head, because she also came on my left side, I'm like, did she say 3 minutes? Or did she say 30? But I'm like so focused on, hey, you know, so I found my size, right? Like the euphoria. So trying the other one. Looking, whatever. Somebody else is trying on shoes, right? I'm like, okay, we're still good, right? 3 minutes. And so I go to try on the other pair, put it on. And then these other people that work there, right, including the person that helped me, they leave. And I'm like, oh, she meant 3, not 30. So the guy comes over and he's like, we're closed. We cannot help you now. We're closed. And I'm like, what? Like, I know you're closed, but like, now the other people that tried on stuff, I think they were gone or whatever at that point. But I was like, I said, okay, like, does that mean I can't buy these? Like, because I'm like, you don't understand. I cannot find shoes. These fit, we're good, right? But now you're pissing me off because so he's like, we're closed. No, you can't buy them. So the other lady behind him who worked there, she might have been the manager because he looked at her like, right. And she's like, no, of course she can buy them. And I was like, So she's like, oh, she's talking to me and everything, and I'm like, mm-hmm. But he was like, no, we're closed. And I was like, so that's kind of the, what did Maureen say, like the edges. Because I was like, wait, we go nuck, we going buck. But it's okay. I did not get the sneakers because I was gonna get them sneakers after that. But needless to say, but that's just an example. It's just an example. Mhm. Karen said you gotta bounce. Of course I had to. I was just like, bruh, you think I'm gonna pay 160 € for these sneakers now? Baby. No. I'm like, don't make the Bronx come out. Like she tries really hard to stay inside, right? Like we should. But yeah, I came back because Maureen had texted me and she was like, "Oh, how'd it go? Did you find something?" I was like, "Yes and no." Right? But that was, and I didn't come back like, "Oh man, these motherfuckers did." No, right? But it was just one of those cultural nuances that, as somebody who lives abroad, as somebody who travels the world, like there are just certain things, and I don't gravitate right away to, oh, it's because I'm a woman, or it's because I'm black, or it's just there are cultural nuances and differences, and we are relating to each other, and we just have to take that into consideration when we have these interactions. So that's all it is. That's all it is. Should we get to some of these questions? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You can you get them, or do you want me to put them up and you want to answer them? Because most of them are for you.
You can do it.
Okay, I'll put them up and then do you rely heavily on the mutual support of the expat community, or do you mostly interact with native locals?
Well, that is a lovely question. We were talking about that. I guess Krishan and I've talked about everything in the past 2.5 days, but it's true. And I think this has been the case when I've lived in other cities as well, or other places as well. Often you gravitate to the expat community because those are people that you often have things in common with. Um, Here in Amsterdam, most of the folks that I have met and have become friends with are expats. But I also have met and interacted with locals because I was telling Krishan how much I love the gym that I go to. Now, those of you who have known me a long time know I really don't like to work out. I'm kind of lazy. But I have found an amazing, wonderful gym that's about 8 minutes away. It's cozy, it's clean, you get free protein shakes as many as you want a day. I mean, help yourself kind of thing. And it's largely locals, but there also are people who are locals who maybe have lived abroad or have traveled a lot abroad. I've met some local Dutch folks who have grown up here and, hung out a little bit. My Dutch tutor is like 20 years younger than me, but she's so cool. And we have such a good time that, when we were supposed to be practicing Dutch, we ended up just like chatting, becoming chatty Cathy and talking about boys and stuff. So now we just hang out. And so she's one of the few like local people that I know and that I consider a friend, but she also is very well traveled. She studied abroad. She speaks like 5 languages, so I find that the locals that I have met and have interacted with tend to be people who have either lived abroad outside of the Netherlands or people who have traveled a lot and are accustomed to, in some setting, being the other or being the stranger. Because I find and I hear, and I think it's very true as somebody who's originally from Chicago, people from Amsterdam are very insular. They're very closed in that sense because people have lived here their whole lives. This is a great place, so they don't leave. They live here, they went to school here, their friends are here, they got the same friends they had when they were kids or in university. And so they've got their own group. And I think it's very difficult. It can be very difficult to break into it. I hear that if you are dating a Dutch person or if you're married to one, that may give you a little bit more entree into the culture because then you are absorbed and brought in by someone that is local. But in a lot of other cases, I think it definitely becomes an expat heavy thing. And it doesn't need to be a bad thing, because I belong to an organization called Internations, which some of you guys are probably familiar with. And they've got chapters all over the world. It's an English speaking group of people who get together based on common interests, or just interests in internationalism, basically, globalism in a positive sense, in the sense that, you don't just feel like you need to stay in your own little bubble. And so I've met people through that organization. I've met, friends from Ukraine. I've met people from the UK, met people from the States. But yeah, I think you just it's good to have a balance, but I think you have to be intentional about that, especially if you want to meet local people. I think you find whatever those interests are that you have. If it's going to church, if it's going to yoga, if it's going to the gym, if it's wine tasting, finding those things that you like to do, and then really trying to maybe do them in a place where not everyone is going to be either a native English speaker, or be an American, or be an expat. So
Yeah, for sure. Great question. So Karen wants to know the best and worst things for you in Amsterdam.
Well, maybe the worst thing would be the weather, because again, moving here from a tropical island, I mean, it's hard to be 82 and sunny every day. You know what I mean? When you move to a place that's not. But, again, being from Chicago, it's not like I'm not used to cold. It's not like I'm not used to gray skies. It's, I get to wear my cute leather jackets and boots and things like that. So, you figure out even the things that are not great, you can find ways to make them positive. If it's a rainy day, that gives you an excuse to stay in and get some stuff done, right? You can get some writing done, or whatever. The best thing, I think, has been a sense of a sense of joy, a sense of freedom, and a sense of safety. And I think for those of us who are from the States, it's something that you often don't realize that you carry until you leave it. The sense of, I don't fear going to church and feeling that some crazy person with an assault rifle is going to come in here and mow us down. I can go to a movie theater. I can go to a grocery store. I can walk home by myself in my neighborhood at 11:30 or midnight after having drinks with a friend, and not worry that something's going to happen to me. And that sense of safety, personal safety, psychological safety, emotional safety, is priceless. And I think, again, for a lot of us Americans, who, live in big cities, live in small communities, live in suburbs, live wherever, there's nowhere in America, to me, and other people may feel differently, but that feels truly safe to me. And it's not about income, it's not about class. It's the gun issue is the gun issue, and you can't get away from that. And we know people who have left the States because of gun violence, and how it affected them or their families, or the potential effect on them and their families. And just living in communities where that kind of violence is just not, it's not random, and it doesn't happen that often. It doesn't mean that it never happens, but your odds of that sort of thing happening to you and impacting you are so much smaller. And you just feel, it's like your shoulders drop. You feel a weight that is lifted off you. And that, I would say, is probably one of the best things.
Great answer. Richard wants to know, have you started learning Dutch since your move, or have you been able to get around just in English alone?
Well, Richard, hi. Yes, I have started learning Dutch, because I've always believed that, when you move to a place and they speak a different language, even if you could get by just on English, as a sign of respect, as a way of trying to learn more about the culture, because language is culture. How you say things, how things are phrased, words that are used, and idioms, it may be the same concept, but the way it's expressed in a different language is so important, and it tells you about what's important to those people and to that culture. So yeah, when I got here, I started learning Dutch. Like I said, I was working with a tutor because I travel quite a bit. So I wanted to join a class because I thought, again, that would be a nice way to meet people, but I was gone a lot, so I wasn't going to be able to take part in a lot of classes. So I did have a Dutch tutor, and I did learn. And I think while I was in the class, or while I was in the sessions with her, I felt like I was learning. but I wasn't practicing that much because in Amsterdam, at least, I think if you probably go to other regions of the country or smaller towns, there probably are older folks who don't really speak much English, in which case you'd have to really know Dutch. But the way they switch back and forth, they switch in a second. And even when you hear them speaking to each other, they're speaking in Dutch and then they break into English like a phrase. And then they go back to Dutch and then there's a word. And sometimes it's a profane word, but then they go to English and they switch right back to Dutch. And so, because they are so fluent and they speak English in many cases better than Americans do, I mean, they can tell us stuff about our own language, and they've grown up learning it in school, and it's just part of the culture as well. So yeah, I've mostly been able to get around on English. I do try to at least start with some of the pleasantries and the greetings, but I will not pretend at all that I'm remotely good at Dutch. And I think it is a mental block, and that's why I think again I probably really need to like meet some local people and say, let's just speak Dutch. I know I won't even understand 90% of what you're saying, but I think that's important to just be around the language and hear it and feel it and absorb it. But yeah, it's hard. It is hard, really hard. So
Because and even in the short time that I've been here, like I said, I've been apologizing for massacring the names language, but I use Google Maps, because Google Maps will just tell you like stop walking here, turn right there, to navigate. But when I was in the store and I was looking for the sneakers, this not the store that we had the incident, but the first store I had gone to that only went up to size 41, the department store. I had walked in and got to the floor, the women's floor, and this Black woman was working there. So I'm like, oh, let me go straight to Sister Girl with the sneaker. And she looked at me and she was like, in Dutch. And I was like, I was like, and she was like, but Frau, right? And I'm like, oh. And then she pointed, and I was like, wait a second, right? I don't know a lot, but I know Frau is woman. So she was trying to tell one of her colleagues to help this woman. And I was like, okay, now I need to walk over there, right? Like, I will say this, even in countries where there's huge language changes, right? Like I was just in Asia for a month in, Thai, Vietnamese, and you can still get context clues. Like if you know a phrase, like I heard all this other stuff and Frau. I was like, oh, she's trying to get somebody to help me. And then I was able to figure it out. And the guy who came over, he came over and was speaking English. She might have told him and all of that. This chick don't speak English, but all I heard was Frau and I turned. Right? So sometimes you can do these things and piece things together. But I agree completely with Maureen that once you start to learn a language, it's like, and you may be surface level for a while, right? My Portuguese is transactional, but then gradually over time, and we have to give each other, give ourselves some grace. A baby doesn't come out being fluent and being able to communicate with his parents, right? It takes years to be able for parents and children to understand each other, right? It's going to take a while, and it's okay, right? The fact that you're trying, the fact that you're an adult learner and you know how best you learn, like Maureen said, well, with her schedule, she couldn't devote time to a class, but was able to do a tutor one-on-one. Now she's like, okay, now I need to practice what I've learned, apply what I've learned, right? All of these things and insights are to your benefit as an adult learner. Whereas when you're younger and education and learning another language is compulsory, you don't really have that insight, or you can't necessarily act on those insights. And so that is one of the things I would say is a beauty of doing this in this chapter of our lives. Ty said, with the weather being harsh, how do you manage? Do you stay indoors? Yeah, great question.
that is a wonderful question. No, you know what? One of the things that I decided when I moved here, because that was what my friends in St. Martin said, how are you gonna make it, girl? You love going to the beach every weekend. How in the world are you going to handle the gray, the cold, the wind, and the rain? And I decided, I told myself, you know what we're going to do? Every 2 or 3 months, we're going to go somewhere with some sun. That's what we're going to do. And so I kind of broke it up because I moved here at the end of August. It was still nice enough that I could still go to like a beach club about, 40 minutes outside of Amsterdam. So I was like, okay, like late September, I'm going to get my last sun in. But then what I was going to do is make sure that I had another trip planned. So I went to, I think, the south of France like in November or something. And then for my birthday, I always take myself someplace nice. And so I decided to go to the Canary Islands. So I had sun. That was in January. Then I come back, it's cold, it's windy, it's gray. It's like, oh my God, how am I going to make it? And then I had a trip planned to St. Martin and St. Bart's to go back and, visit friends and folks that I knew there in the Caribbean. And so, that was at the end, mid to late March. By the time I got back here, it was spring. The tulips are coming up, I'm like, okay, that was the plan. So I found, and not everybody again can build this in, it all depends on, your schedules and your budgets and things like that. But I thought, taking advantage of being in Europe, so I didn't have to fly to the Caribbean. I looked up where is there some sun in January in Europe, because it becomes less expensive to travel because you're not going as far. It doesn't take you as long, but you're still going to get someplace and have sunshine in, low 70s. I just wanted to sit on the beach. I needed to see a body of water that I could not see the other side, and I needed some sand. And I needed some sun. And that was enough. And so, that is how I have dealt with it. I think breaking it up. And no, I don't stay indoors. I mean, I'm a writer, so I work alone for the most part. Every now and then I go to my company's office, but yeah, I get out and I make myself get out. I find errands. It's like I still love wearing stilettos, which is crazy in these streets. So I made good friends with the shoe repair guy. I see him like once a week. He's like, here she comes. Here she comes again, like today. Here she comes again with those crazy shoes. I don't know why she hasn't figured out. Can't wear stilettos in Amsterdam. Can't wear those little heels. But I get out. I do things. I go to the, if it's a street market and buy some fresh flowers, I'll do that. If it's go to the supermarket and pick up some water and some fresh fruit, it's finding those things to make sure that you kind of break up your day and that you get outside. And I'm, no one believes me, but I am quite an introvert by nature, and left to my own devices, I would never leave home. And so
And
no one believes me.
yeah, it's I mean I think you are. I think you are. I think we have that in common. Like we're social introverts. Maybe that's the right word. And I think one of the things, just to tack on to what you said, is breaking it up by traveling, is you can do that now. Like I travel more now that I live in Europe than I did in the United States, because it is affordable. And particularly within Europe, it's affordable. And these countries are so close. Like I left Lisbon, I got to Amsterdam in 2.5 hours. The ticket was, and I don't even remember, I think I bought it pretty late. So it was probably on a higher side than normal, but it was like 120. I've seen it lower, I've seen it like 80. That time I went to Italy in December, it was, I think I paid 70 euro. And so I can't get a ticket like that to go from New Jersey to Florida to see my mom. And that's on the same coast, right? It's only a couple of states between New Jersey and Florida. And so sometimes when people think about Europe, they think it's super expensive because the euro is so strong as compared to the dollar, right? But there are so many things that are affordable. There are, free concerts. There's all of these other things that kind of, these beautiful railway systems that allow you to transport yourself, buses, all of these things that avail yourself. So you can decide, well, if I don't like this season, or I want to go away for a month or 3 months, whatever, you can do that, right? So that's one of the beautiful things about being in Europe. Um, Ty said, what's the racial and ethnic diversity like? Ooh, maybe talk about yesterday's trip.
Absolutely. And feel free to jump in on this one, Krishan. But yeah, there definitely are Black folks in Amsterdam and in the Netherlands. Now, the good and bad thing is a lot of these European countries, they were former empires, and they built a lot of money on colonialism, slave trade in a lot of cases, whether it's Portugal, Spain, UK, France, you name it, right? The Netherlands. And there are people from those former colonies who live in these places. And so in the Netherlands, obviously, they had there wasn't active slavery here in the country. There wasn't like a plantation culture like there was in the States where people were like growing stuff and working the land. But there were people in the Dutch West India Company, the Dutch East India Company, these names we've heard about when we were in grade school and high school and college or university, and we were studying about these things. Those people made money in the slave trade, in colonialism, and in taking the spoils from other lands, whether it was Indonesia and the spices. There are a lot of Indonesian folks here. You will find lots of Indonesian restaurants. You will find lots of Indonesian people. You will find mixed race Indonesian folks that maybe you're Indonesian and Dutch or Indonesian and Black or something, but there are those folks here. There are Black people from former colonies, whether it is Curacao, St. Martin, Suriname is a big one. Um, I'm trying to think. I don't know if they had a lot of colonies in Africa. Obviously, there were Dutch people who went to South Africa. Those are the people who became the Afrikaners that we know of now. So that's a whole other thing. But yeah, so there is that diversity. And there's also, because this is Europe, there are a lot of people who came later. There are loads of Moroccans. I don't think I have met an Uber driver or a taxi driver who is not Moroccan. And their people have been here since like the 20s. These are Dutch people. They just happen to have roots in Morocco. And so, there are lots of Turkish people. Lots of them came here during I think in the early 20th century, and they came here just like immigrants go everywhere for jobs and to work. They have families, they got married, they stayed, their kids become Dutch citizens, and they are Dutch citizens. There's Dutches, the 7 foot tall folks that Krishan keeps noticing in the street. They just happen to be of Moroccan or Turkish heritage. So there is quite a feeling of a melting pot here. And there are people who have come from different places. There are folks like me, Black Americans. There are people who came from Africa or come from Africa. There are people who come from all over the world. So that racial and ethnic diversity is a comfortable thing. You can find somewhere to get your hair done, get your hair did, as we say, because there are Black folks here. And there are people who can do that. There are Black people who have Black Dutch folks who have been here forever and for many, many generations. And so that's the nice thing. You don't feel like you're the only brown person walking down a street or in a store or anything like that. And that I think is a wonderful thing. That is very nice. And Krishan, obviously coming from Portugal, which again had lots of colonies, that was, you see it, and I think it's often surprising to people because you hear Dutch, you think, oh, a little blonde Dutch boy or something with a little page boy cut and all the rest of it. But one thing that Krishan mentioned was yesterday we went on a Black Heritage tour with Jennifer Tosh. If anybody is coming to Amsterdam, put that at the top of your list. This sister is fabulous, just brilliant. She's a cultural historian. She's a cultural scholar. She's born in New York, but her people are from Suriname, one of the Dutch colonies down in South America. And she's got lots of relatives who have lived in the Netherlands for generations. And so she decided to come here as part of her, I think, was it graduate studies, that she came here, and she wanted to study about the Black presence. Whether it was slavery, but the Black presence that has been in the Netherlands for centuries. And she has created an incredible tour. It's a combination of canals. So she rents this gorgeous boat. We like boats. This gorgeous boat. And these small tours of maybe about 10 folks. And it's also in combination with the Rijksmuseum, which is the state national museum that's got the Dutch masters, those names that we know, Rembrandt, Van Gogh, Vermeer, these different painters and different artists. And she has made it a point on her life's work to find where those the Black presence is within all these thousands and thousands of works within the State Museum, and bring her groups in and talk about them. And we look at paintings, some that are, biblically themed. There are some that were done by, I think it's like, well, maybe one Black person who has like artwork there, crazy kind of stuff. But she again has made it her life's work to highlight and show the presence of Black folks throughout the years. And it wasn't just slavery; it predated slavery. And there's so much that the different people of different ethnicities, including Black people, have contributed to the history of the Netherlands. Thank you for pulling that up. Yeah, it's incredible, absolutely incredible. So Jennifer, we telling people about you because you're a rock star.
Yeah, I agree. The trip was phenomenal. Of course, y'all know I love me some boats. So we were touring the canal on the beautiful boat and hearing so much about our history. A lot of times when Europeans like to talk about Black history, if at all, it's only talking about slavery. And while that is obviously an important part of our story, that's not where our story began. And that isn't our only contributions. We built so many societies that profited off of it. And then to see how it operated differently here, more in some ways, and I don't want to give it all away because I want you guys to go on the tour, but it operated very, very differently than it did in the Americas. The Americas, as we know, was the worst of it. So much so that we, as Black Americans, are still feeling the effects of that many years after, right? Because it's only been an optimization in the US. So definitely recommend that you go on the Black Heritage Tour. We saw different, works of art that featured Black people in the museum. There was just so many things. And, definitely next time I come to Amsterdam, I have no problems taking the tour again. Jennifer is also a published author. She's published several books, I think 5 or 6. Some of them are available in the museum. Some of them are available if you have the opportunity to take the tour for purchase. I have a book. I'm looking forward to diving into it and learning more about it. And so, yeah, it's definitely, I think any country you go to, I've talked about Naki's tour in Portugal, the African Lisbon tour. I've taken the tour in Paris, Black Paris tour. So any of the cities that I go to, I try to take a Black tour if it's available because we've made so many contributions. And they only want to focus, and sometimes we only focus on one aspect of it, but we miss out on so many layers of the story. And so, as adult people and as adult learners, as global citizens, as curious learners, we should be curious about our heritage and proud of the contributions, and not, the slavery part, but about some of the things that we've done, like innovations that we've done that we created, right? And so it's not to bury them or suppress them, it's to excavate them and resurface them and be proud of the things that we have contributed to society because we are phenomenal and we continue to do phenomenal things. Okay, so that was that.
Amen to all that.
um, so I read that Amsterdam is a country known for holistic health and wellness. Have you experienced this or found this to be true?
That is a very interesting question. It's funny. My sister used to always tell me in the U.S., "You are a very heavy consumer of healthcare. You're a very heavy consumer of healthcare." But in the States, it's not really healthcare. It's more like, what is it? Whatever the opposite of sick care. Thank you. I was like, what's the opposite of that? We've been up a long time. Sick care is not designed to make you well. It's designed to keep you sick because the big pharma, who both Krishan and I have worked for, profit from keeping you sick, from keeping you hooked on medicine for the rest of your life. I have a chronic condition for which I will have to take medicine for the rest of my life. And that's just the way it is, as opposed to saying, well, let's see what we could do to maybe mitigate some of the symptoms that you've got so we can wean you off some of those medicines. But no, let's just keep you on that for the rest of your life until you die. Amsterdam definitely, I think, is much more takes a much more holistic approach. I have a good friend who is here in America, not in America, who is here in Amsterdam, who's from the U.S., and she's a Reiki healer. There are people, you can actually find people who are interested in that sort of approach to things. It's not just I'm having some trouble, some mental health troubles, give me some pills to deal with that. There is a much more, I think there's a lot more openness. It just as a society, I think in general, the Netherlands and Amsterdam in particular, and not just the marijuana piece of it, but there's an openness and a progressive nature to things. People are curious, they're open minded, they seem to be very willing to try different things. And, even me going to doctors here, because you have to have like a general practitioner who then, just like in the States, they have to refer you to different people if you need specialties. But, it's easy to say, I'd like to see a dietitian when I say I want to lose weight, rather than just saying, oh, well, we'll prescribe you a pill. They're not going to do that. It's like, oh, well, we have dietitians that you can go and see that can work with you on your diet. So I go, once a month, and I meet with this lovely lady who is a dietitian, and she talks to me. She's like my, psychologist too. And so she talks to me about, what are the issues? What are the things that you're thinking about? How can I help you find new ways to think about food and weight and your diet and all of that? And that's like all covered. All these things are covered. Everything's covered. You like pay, I think it's maybe 385 euros per year is your health care deductible. There's physio included. So if you needed to go and see a chiropractor, if you needed to go and see someone that, again, isn't just going to prescribe you a pill, but that would, be able to work with you on a physical level and a holistic level. So even when I've gone in and I've spoken to my gastroenterologist, which is a tummy doctor for those of you lucky enough not to know what that is. If I've had to go and see my rheumatologist, if I've had to go in and see the gynecologist, there is just a much more holistic approach to medicine. They want to talk to you about other stuff. Yes, you're coming in to talk to me about your tummy, but obviously that's connected to other stuff. So what other things can we talk about? What other things can we help you with? And so again, because most of your medical costs are covered by not just your employer, but by the government, by the fact that you are a human being that lives in this country. I'm not a citizen. I'm not a permanent resident yet. I am a resident with a visa, but that gives me entree to this wonderful healthcare system. Is it perfect? No, nothing is perfect. But I do find that there is an openness to looking at how can we help you in a way that is not just prescribing you pills that are going to keep you hooked. And that is wonderful. So, again, it's been 8 months, so I'm sure there'll be more, but there are definitely those options that are available, and they do encourage you to do that. Even like my company, reimburses most of my gym membership. And I don't go to a cheap gym, but they reimburse a huge portion of that, because I think there is also a belief that it's better to keep you well than to make you well. So if we keep you exercising and we keep you going to the gym, it's helping your mental health, it's helping your physical health. And if we can do that on the front end rather than the back end, how nice is that? They pay for you to get they reimburse a big portion of your bike if you want it, because everybody's on bikes, as Krishan was saying. I haven't gotten one yet, but yeah, they would pay a big portion of me getting a bike or renting one every month. Since I work at home, they'll pay for like your home office setup. I mean, there's just a sense of you are more than just a number, and it's incumbent on us as the society to make you well and to keep you well and to make you as good as you can possibly be. That helps you then contribute to society. It's hard to do that when you're in pain and you can't work and you can't do anything because you're sick.
We're going to speed through the rest of these because we got to go to bed. Food or dish that's become your favorite?
Hmm. Gosh, what? Well, I'm kind of bad because I like go to Italian restaurants all the time. So I had took Rashawn to my favorite Italian restaurant tonight. That's where we were coming from. I take people to my favorite burger place. It's a bar. It's like these fabulous smash burgers. So most of the food that I like, I must admit, is not necessarily Dutch food. But my new favorite Dutch food is something called kibbeling. Now that sounds like dog food, but it's Kibbeling. It's fried either cod or haddock, and they serve it in just like a little plastic container with a side of remoulade. It's like a mayonnaise based sauce. It is like it's like crack. It's like fried crack. It is so good. It's like fried fish. So I was like, I wish my dad was coming to visit because he would love this stuff. It's like little nuggets almost of fried fish. And people walk down the street and it's hot. They serve it steaming hot. You go to a fishmonger and you buy it, and you can get small, medium, large. You're gonna share it. You're gonna eat it by yourself, and you get this little black plastic tub of fried fish, and some remoulade, and it is like the best thing ever. It is, that show on what is it, the Food Network, the best thing I ever ate. The best thing I ever ate in like the past 2 weeks is kibbeling, and it's like a very very popular Dutch dish, and so Dutch people eat it all the time. But like I said, I don't know a whole lot of Dutch people, so if I did, I probably would have been eating it months ago. But it's my new favorite thing.
And we had the apple tart.
Oh Lord, yes, the apple tart.
Apple tart. The apple tart was like this thick. It was amazing. I was like, I can't eat anything else, but it was delicious. We had that today. Just wants to know, can you see yourself living here permanently?
I could definitely see myself here for a long time. Now, permanent is like, that's a long time because I move around. I'm a gypsy. My mother always says, I'm a gypsy. I'm her gypsy baby. So I move a lot. But I could see myself living here a long time. Again, I have a visa that's good for 5 years. I want to become an EU citizen. That is my goal. Um, I'd like to become a Dutch citizen if I stay in the Netherlands because, obviously it's part of the European Union. Once you're in, you're in. So then I could move to Portugal, hang out with Krishan there. I could move to Spain. I could move to Italy. I could move to France. I could move to, any of these other countries that are part of the EU, and that lets you live there as well as work. But yeah, I mean, I want to be here for the foreseeable future. I don't have plans to leave, but my heart is always, as those of you who know me well, my heart's always in France and in Italy, kind of between the two. So, ultimately, I probably do want to live in France, but that doesn't mean that I would not be happy if I were here. And because it's so easy to get around and to travel to other places, I think, that again gives you so much liberty and so much freedom that it's like, if I wanted to go to France once a month, I could do that.
Speaking of France, before we get to the last question, where are we going tomorrow, Maureen?
We are going to Nice, to the French Riviera, to La Côte d'Azur. And it's so funny. Because when Krishan, we were talking about her coming to visit, I was like, well, I always tell people, well, you're coming here. Where else do you want to go? You want to go somewhere else? And she said she had not been to Nice or to the French Riviera. And that's like one of my other happy places in the world. So I was like, well, then, that's all you got to say. Say less. We're going to buy a ticket. We're going to go. And so we will be going there for 4 days or 5 days, 4 nights. And yeah, and it's on the Mediterranean. If you've never been to the south of France, treat yourself, do yourself a favor in life. It's a place that you will, I'm sure you would love. My family loves it. It's just beautiful. It's right on the Mediterranean Sea, and it's very close to Italy. It's only about maybe a 45-minute train ride, maybe between 45 minutes and an hour to the Italian border. You get to Monaco before you even get there, so you get to cross a whole bunch of, get to we're going to do 4 countries in like a week. Exactly. So the Netherlands, and then France, and then Monaco, and then Italy, and we can literally do it on a train ride in like a morning. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to stay at a lovely Airbnb that's just about a block from the Mediterranean. It's supposed to be about 70, low 70s. sunny most of the days. We're going to do beach clubs because Krishan said she had never been to a French beach club. I said, you haven't done beach clubs, so you've done French beach clubs. Either in France or in the Caribbean. So we are going to do that. We are going to enhance our melanated skin, get some sun, get some, sea vibes, eat very well, have a couple cocktails, take in some French male eye candy, just, ooh la la, ooh la la. It's going to be fun. It's going to be
I won't sing Hey LaBelle song because I know what it means.
Oh, no. Yeah, not that.
But what else?
Some people are too young
Yeah,
to hear that.
yes, and or to say it to a French man. But so what did we find out today that's going on this weekend while we're going to be there, Maureen?
I'm gonna let you talk about that one.
Me? Okay, so we're going to Monaco, right? So we're going to Nice, and then Monaco. What I learned, because I had to have, we're flying from Amsterdam to Nice, and then at some point, we're gonna have lunch, I think, or something like that in Italy, and then come back to France. Like, this is a global life, not bad for a lady from the Bronx and a lady from Chicago, and we were looking at stuff that was going on. Y'all know I love me some yachts. And found out that the Grand Prix is going on this weekend. And one of my bucket list items, I don't even know how these things like come up as I was planning my new life, like when I was still in the States. I was like, oh, I want to go to a Formula One race. I want to do this. And then I'm like, wait, what are the, I'm like, we didn't even plan this. We did not plan this, but it is manifesting itself. What? Say less. Yes, beautiful things happening.
Now we have no tickets, mind you.
No,
we have no tickets to the Grand Prix.
Manifest some tickets.
We're gonna manifest some tickets. We just gonna get on the train from Nice. We're gonna go to Monaco.
Because a man named Festus is gonna bring us some tickets. That's how we gonna manifest it. So let's do this to the last one because we gotta go to bed. Our flight's in the morning. Finding a place to live. Was it difficult?
Well, we have had this conversation too, because Amsterdam, just like many other popular European cities, Barcelona, Paris, Madrid, Lisbon, they have been, for various reasons, lots of folks, a lot of Americans and other people have been moving to these places to, from the US, as an obvious reason, crazy stuff going on. But a lot of people have been relocating to these places, and they're coming with more money in many cases than the locals have. Or they're coming with a corporate job, or whatever, or they're coming with means, and it's driving up the cost of rent. And that can be very difficult, especially for local people. And I think that's something that, those of us who try to be sensitive to those things pay attention to, that it's not always easy because there's not a ton of stock, a lot of housing stock, especially if you want to live in the center of a city. And that's true whether you're an expat, that's true whether you're a local. And so it can be hard to find a place to rent. And so, I prayed a lot about it because I was moving here last summer. I knew that, when I left St. Martin, I wanted to move into an apartment. I had an arrangement with my company. They were going to sponsor my visa and handle my taxes and stuff like that. But I had to pay to move myself here. So I wasn't moving on a true expat package like some people are used to when they say, oh, well, Shell moved me, or BP moved me, or Abbott moved me, and they pay for you to stay for 2 or 3 months in a temporary housing and all that stuff. No, Maureen was paying for all of that. So I needed to find an apartment where I could move right in as soon as I got here and not have to find places to store all my stuff and all the rest of it. So I was really fortunate. I hired a realtor. That I think was the best money spent. Because, yeah, you could try to do it on your own, but but you don't know what you don't know. And I think that's the thing that we often say when you first get to a place. Sometimes you have to put out more money to do certain things because you don't know what you don't know, and you need to hire professionals who do know, and they know the laws and they know the regulations and they know how to navigate the system. I've lived all over the world, but I don't know how to do it in Amsterdam. And I'm not naive enough or, so, brazen to think that I'm just going to show up and I'm just going to find what I wanted exactly. So I had a really good realtor who helped me out. We went out together. I'd made a trip here, I think in June, to start looking for a place because I knew I was coming at the end of August. I wanted to have a place, and we didn't find something then, but we got to know each other well enough that she knew my idiosyncrasies. She knew what I wanted, what I was looking for, so that she could be basically go on my behalf and look at places. And she would call me at 4 a.m. in St. Martin and say, she'd go and make an appointment, and she would go to an apartment, and we do a WhatsApp, and she would walk through the apartment and open the drawers and open the closet doors and, really give me a sense of the place. And she'd say, well, it looks really nice in the pictures, but it's dark. Or it looks really nice, but the stairs are really steep. You're not going to want that, and so that is who I use to help find this place. And I think it's invaluable, especially when you don't know a lot of people on the ground who could do that sort of thing for you. Sometimes you have to pay for friends who can help you do that kind of stuff and have somebody who, again, knows how to navigate the system. And there were a lot of really important laws with the apartment things that were changing that were going to make it far more expensive and far tougher to get a place and to be able to keep it. And so, it's just, God is just good, and I think the timing and everything works out. And, so again, you don't know why things work out the way they do or when they do and all of the rest of it, but it all just fell into place. And I am so fortunate, and I walked into my apartment. I was like, I hope it looks as cute when I get there as it did in the pictures. But I ended up with like a place with tons of bookshelves. I have hundreds of books. I was able to keep all my books and bring all my stuff. Has really good energy. My landlord lived in Africa for years, so she's got beautiful, African art and things on the walls. And, we've gotten along wonderfully. Had a chance to meet on Zoom before I got here and went to lunch when she came to town. I mean, it's all been really wonderful, but I think it's not an easy thing. But I think, again, there is something about, power of prayer and power of manifesting of what you want and what you're looking for, and trusting that you will get what you need. And I think that's just a life lesson, not just for a place to stay. So.
Yes, absolutely. That's perfect. And Linda said, I moved from the DMV to Nice, France in October. Linda, you gotta come on and tell your story. Hit me up, girl. Congratulations.
That is fabulous.
That is fabulous. Wow. Look, I'm telling y'all got to get out. You got to see the world. There's a you that's on the other side that's waiting for you, right? It's all possible. It's all possible. Am I forgetting anything, Maureen, before we break?
I do see one question that my cousin Garrick actually sent on my phone. I didn't know if it was in the chat or not, but I do see one. You see something from Garrick Petty? Okay. So I'm going to read Garrick's question. Garrick lives in South Carolina. He's fabulous too. He came to visit me when I lived in Florence. He and Miss Gloria Jenkins, my mother, came to visit me. And Mr. Farnell Jenkins is, my other world traveler, my dad, who comes to visit me everywhere I live too. So Garrick says, do you see Americans coming to Amsterdam for healthcare? Is that an option, considering you mentioned having a primary care physician? That is a very good question. I have not met or heard of any Americans coming here. It's not, we hear about countries where people go for medical tourism. That often tends to be places like Colombia or Brazil, maybe for cosmetic procedures or even for other procedures. And I know, Krishan, you mentioned like folks in Vietnam getting new teeth and all kind of stuff, So there are places that people do travel specifically for healthcare. I have not seen that happen here, but for Americans who move here, or who are traveling here, if you needed health care, that's obviously something that you could take advantage of. You probably have to pay cash and pay out of pocket. Now, because I have Dutch health care because of, and it's mandatory here. That's another thing. everybody has to have health care. And that's a beautiful thing, unlike the States where you get taxed and penalized if you can't afford the Affordable Care Act or afford some sort of health care. Here, it's reasonable. Like I told you, €385, which is about what, $400, give or take, is the deductible for the year. Now you also pay a monthly premium. I think I maybe pay $180 or €180 a month, but that is top of the line healthcare. I got the top of the line plan because I was like, I don't know what I don't know, right? So I don't want to be chinchy and get the little cheap plan and then realize I got to pay a bunch of stuff for for other things, and that includes those physio appointments if you need to get somebody to crack you and adjust you and get you all straight, or if you needed physical therapy, that's dental care, that's everything. So, I'm just saying that, yeah, sometimes people complain, oh, but I had to wait to see a specialist. You got to wait to see specialists in the States too. You don't just walk in there. So, I mean, it's like, let's be realistic. The fact that the government makes sure that everyone has health care and it is not tied to your job, as in the States. Why so many of us work jobs that we hate because we have health care, because you won't have any otherwise, or you'll have to pay a lot for really terrible health care if you do leave said job. The fact that just because you are a human being that lives in this country, you have a right and a privilege to health care. That's the way it ought to be. So that's not really answering your question, Garrett, but I do not know about Americans who come here specifically for that. But once you do live here, it does make it a whole lot easier.
Yeah, and it's interesting because that was one of the things I did mention earlier. Like when I landed here a few days ago, I got here, got set up in Maureen's flat, and then I wound up having to do a television interview for a European news outlet about Americans moving to Europe, and I was on a panel. It has not aired yet. When it does, I'll share. But it was talking about like all of the things that are driving and encouraging Americans. Maureen talked earlier about the gun violence, healthcare, just feeling squeezed, which we talked about in last week's episode about the cost of staying, not just the cost of leaving, but if you choose to stay, what is it really costing you? And for the life that you're paying today in the States and getting subpar care, quality, low quality of life, not great health care, the food is bad. You could be living that life somewhere else. South, you could be in France, you can be in Europe, you can be in Southeast Asia, you can be on the continent of Africa. There's so many other places in the world. And so I just want to continue to encourage everyone, if you don't already have your passport, get your passport. Get in community. Our friend Maureen is in Blaxit Global Passport. For those of you who are in Passport or thinking about joining Passport, right? It's aspiring expats and repats, right? So this is where you can really build community, get the resources, and gain support along your journey abroad. So we are going to go to bed because we got to get up early for this flight because I don't want to miss this flight. What? I've never been to the south of France. I've been to Paris, but south of France, what is waiting for me? And 3 more countries to hit before next week. So I will give you an update next week when I come back, right? I won't say same bat time because I'll be back in my normal time and I'll be in my normal time zone. But I appreciate all of you that tuned in. I hope you found this to be, really informative and inspirational. Continue to listen to the Blaxit Global podcast. Be sure to listen to Maureen's episode and her earlier appearance on our YouTube channel. And we will talk to you soon. All right. Take care. Ciao, ciao. Boa noite.
Au revoir.